to you, Carter, is this.
Yes, sir.
What are some symbols have you seen so far of a falling away from basic godly principles in what's going on in society today?
I think that there's quite a few. I think the easiest one to ping right away, yeah, it's such a hot topic, but people talk about, the transgenderism, how people believe that, we should accept people's, I don't want to say necessarily delusion, but their idea that they are a different being than what they really are, than what they were born as. I think people get very uncomfortable in their bodies at a young age, and in the time frame that we live in now, people are so empathetic. They want to try to play to emotions so much that they try to make people believe that that's okay, that you can feel like you're not the body that you're in. You can feel like you're a girl trapped in a boy's body or a boy trapped in a girl's body. And I think that that is the easiest separation right there, because it makes people believe that their creator, our God, the God above us, the one that created everyone, made a mistake with them, that they were somehow this one-off that didn't make any sense, and now they've separated themselves from him, they've separated themselves from any sort of religious beliefs, and they've identified as, this spiritual being, which I found people doing that quite a lot, people who aren't religious but consider themselves spiritual. I don't know if you see that very often, but it's definitely something that I've noticed, and I think that's probably the biggest proponent right there of the separation.
And I think that that's why it's creeping into, in some aspect, some circumstances into the religious, and it's because we've meandered away. Now, once again,
Yes.
Pattern Realm, this is not a political podcast,
Yes.
but Carter, how do you see that secularization and polarization has taken us away from a covenant contract for better business and public affairs?
I think it's easy to tell. I mean, the secular world has gotten so much more prevalent. We see people, celebrating a certain kind of lifestyle, the music they listen to, the movies that we watch. There's not many movies or music out there that puts the Father, that puts God above all, and that's what we're called to do. We're called to put God above everything. And I feel like people live a lifestyle now that's more in tune with the secular side of things, and it's easy to do, especially whenever you're trying to get into a business mindset, because I feel like a lot of people try to separate the same thing about religion and religion and politics. I think they try to separate religion from business, and I think they go hand in hand. I don't think you can really be a successful businessman without having that religious proponent in your life.
I believe that that's so true. I believe that that's so true, and I don't know why but we're going to go ahead and really and truthfully, we're going to go ahead and really just bring it down to brass tacks, Mr. Carter. My question to you also is this: how can we, in our marriages and families, live out our faith and political values? And I know me and my wife, for instance, we are completely opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But yet we have some of the same social values.
Yes.
How can we still live our faith out privately as well as publicly?
That's a very good question. I think that it really depends on the partners that we choose. I feel like some people get into partnerships or even relationships early that, even if you, like, you use the example of you and your wife being on two different sides of the spectrum, being able to at least relate on the important things. I think that there are people who get into relationships that don't think about that early on, and they kind of get stuck in that. Then this chasm grows. Where, oh, you think this differently than I do, so I'm not even going to talk about it because I know it's going to create an argument. It's going to become a whole thing. We're not going to get anywhere. One person's going to be upset, or both parties are going to be upset. I mean, it's so easy to do, even with friendships. I mean, I think friendships can be the same case. I think you have to have equal yoking in all facets, whether it be relationships, friendships, business affairs. I think there has to be at least some level of agreement, on the essentials.
I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to open up the podcast here about something. This is going to happen in my last marriage. I mean, there was so much polarization that
Yes.
it knocked things out of the box.
Yes.
And do you notice, Carter, that social media and technology in some ways can make this matter worse?
Ooh, yes, definitely. I think that what I had talked about, how there's music and movies and stuff that pertain more to the secular worldview. I think social media is nothing but the secular worldview. I think that there's so much, what's the right word? There's so much prevalence of the secular mindset on social media, whether it be, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. You can find those sects of religious believers, the ones that spread the gospel, the ones that talk about God, the ones that talk about Jesus, but they're so hard to find, and they're almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost railroaded, like they're almost pulled back, almost shadow banned almost. Like there's not as much attention given to them on purpose, because that's the unifying message. That's the message that brings people together. And I think people are so quick to hear certain things and immediately get upset about it, when I believe that we can easily have conversations with people who don't disagree with us. I mean, if I had an atheist sitting in front of me right now, I would feel compelled to have a conversation. I would want to ask questions about what they believe, and I would want to give them answers about what I believe. And I feel like so many people have gone to the point now where they don't want to do that. And social media is definitely an area where people are quick to go to the secularism and not have open debate.
All honesty, I think that a lot of motivational speakers I see like on YouTube, they say that social media inflates the good.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen is that social media inflates evil.
Yes.
How do you see that social media has inflated evil in politics and in public life?
Well, I think there's quite a few examples. We can look at the most recent example. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Yes, I am.
But that's a perfect example, where people who have a different idea than the masses that they're going to speak to, they have a different belief than the masses that they're going to speak to. They'll sit down for an open debate, and whenever he sat down to have a debate, he was murdered in front of the world. And there was a large section of the population who looked at it as a good thing. A man who believed differently than them was killed, and that's a good thing. And I think that social media was a definite proponent of that. I think it excelled this idea that if you think differently than I do, then you're the evil one. And I think it's easy to claim, that there's one side who's evil and one side who's not, when we have people who are going out there and trying to have conversations with the ones who claim that they're evil. Charlie Kirk was going out and sitting down with people to have conversations with people that he believed weren't of the right mindset, that he believed were corrupted, and he wanted to try to turn them around, set them on the right track. And we saw what happened with him, unfortunately. And like I said, there was a section of people, not a large group or anything like that, but there was a good section that decided that it was a good thing. And I think social media is definitely a main proponent of that, for sure.
It's a big inflator. I mean, and once again, try not to get overly political here.
Yeah.
It reminds me also of the church shooting
Yes.
week before last in
Yes.
Michigan.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you this right now, Pat and Realm. When I heard about this church shooting, it broke my heart in two.
Yes.
And I listened to the pundits. One of them, I don't know his last name, was Quick Media on YouTube, and Glenn Beck.
Mm-hmm.
And after I listened to them on my political podcast, I turned to my wife Blanca. I said, "Look, I know you and I may be on different sides of the veil, but politically, but I gotta preach this."
Yes.
And so I went to the airwaves, Carter, Pat and Realm. I went to the airwaves and I started teaching against hate, teaching about fruits,
Yes.
teaching about how to live the gospel.
Yes.
And I think that because of the separation from God, separation from the Bible, that's why the implosion is going on in public life.
I absolutely agree.
What are your thoughts about how we can improve that?
I think it starts with more voices, a lot like Charlie's. You know, a lot of people will say that he was a divisive guy. He said things that were like, you know, inciting violence against a certain group of people. When I think that a lot of people have their feelings hurt, to be perfectly honest, and look at it as violence. And I think we've gotten to a point where if people can't understand that you can say something that might hurt my feelings, but I still want to have a conversation. Even if you said something that was, you know, made me take a second or, you know, take a second glance at you or whatever, I still want to have a conversation. I still want to know why you believe that. I still want to try to set you on the right path. And I want to hear you say why I might be on the wrong path. I want to hear whatever anybody's opinion is, you know. And I feel like we've gotten to a point where most people don't want to have those conversations. And I think it's very important that if somebody disagrees with you, that you can at least come to an understanding of why, you know. To have so much separation that we can't even sit down to have a decent conversation, it's going to be detrimental to society.
I noticed the deterioration really starting in the 90s when I was a high school kid, but especially as I finished college, my generation especially started this, and maybe some older people, my way or the highway. And I think that if we're in a covenant contract for public affairs, we need to go back to the principles that have made us great.
Yes.
How can we go back on those principles and act proactively? You know, I'm going to say this about divisive. A lot of people like to throw that around, and I wasn't going to say it, but now I got to say it. I think it's a sissified word for what it really is, which is reactive. And I don't think that Charlie Kirk was being reactive.
I like that. No, that's a very good point. I would say that the easiest thing to do is to interact with the older generations. You know, I find myself interacting with, especially at Toastmasters, you know, with people who are outside of my generation. And I think most people in my generations now especially don't want to have those conversations. They don't want to know what the previous generation thought because they look at them as a bigoted generation or a hateful generation, whatever you may call it. And I think that that's ridiculous. I think that if we can't have conversations with old and young alike, then there's no way that we can have conversations with people who disagree with us.
That's like, you know, my grandmother, she grew up during the Depression. You know, East Texas backwoods country girl. And she was kind of prejudiced. Nonetheless, before she died, I would sit there and talk to her for hours about what it was like raising her kids, seeing them move off, what she thinks about the direction of her kids and grandkids. And I ate it up. And you're right, more younger people need to speak to their aunts and uncles and grandmothers instead of walking around saying, I know everything there is to know.
Exactly.
But all they know is the digital world, social media.
Absolutely.
And to be honest with you, that scares me.
Yes, I agree. And to be fair, I think that as prevalent as the evil may be on social media, I do believe that there is good that comes out of it.
There is good,
I do believe that there are people out there who have a voice, who are having that open dialogue, you know, having people who disagree with them come on, or going out. And, you know, I've seen recently, there's a couple of influencers that have been going out and doing the same thing that Charlie was doing, going to the universities and having those conversations, which I think is so important. I mean, the universities, from the dawn of time, has always been the discussion, the place where different-minded people come to discuss, you know, whether it be ideas, you know, revelations, plans for the future. That's the place where differing ideas are heard by the masses, and people decide what they want to believe going forward after some situations like that, you know. And I think we need to get back to that. I think the open dialogue is going to be the easiest way to do that.
You just helped me set up one of my primary audiences when I begin my speaking career. Is universities. Because people, these kids nowadays in universities, they need to have a success plan developed.
Yes.
They need to have a success plan developed. And who better than older speakers who've been there, who've had the hard knocks.
Yes.
Because I remember it was like for me, a kid in high school and college, skull full of mush, feeling like I,
Knew everything.
I can hang the moon and I can do anything.
Yeah.
But you go through college, especially, your sophomore, junior, senior years, you're starting to say, you start to say, hey, I don't know as much as I thought I did.
Right, absolutely.
But even so, if you don't go to college, to walk around in public life and say, well, I know everything,
Yes.
it just ruins your perception.
Yes.
And there's plenty of people on social media out there doing that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what a lot of it stems from, why people are so quick to dismiss, the religious aspect of things, is because they feel like a lot of people who are religious pretend that they do know everything. That they, because what happens after death, because you know how the earth was created and all this, you're somehow more pretentious. You're somehow the bigger person. And whenever a religious person is speaking to me, and I'm speaking as from the perspective of like an atheist or even an agnostic, that somehow you're better than I am. I'm not living the right life. You're living the perfect life. And I think that's a misconception. I think that a lot of religious people are not perfect. I think a lot of religious people are just simple human beings, just like the rest of us, that make mistakes. And I think the overall message is almost missed because people are quick to dismiss it because they believe that whenever they're being spoken to in a certain way, they're being almost little brothered, if that makes sense. Like they're being treated like they're someone's child or someone's younger sibling. And I can see how that would make it easy to dismiss them. But that's when I encourage people, if you believe differently, hear that person out. I want to have conversations with people that don't believe the same things that I do, and I want to tell them why I think that they're wrong. I mean, I look at it as a change my mind moment. I think it's important to have those conversations.
We have a little over 3.5 minutes left, Carter.
Yes, sir.
My question is this: how can people that are mindful of public affairs, and maybe either entrepreneurs or inspiring entrepreneurs, get themselves seen in public life in a way that is proactive?
Well, I think that's another big thing where social media comes into play. I think that there's a level of balance that you need to have on social media. I think that there's a lot of prevalent evil, but like I said, I think that there's a lot of good that comes from it. And the best way to get your voice out there, especially if you're an aspiring businessman or aspiring entrepreneur, is to have that social media presence, is to have what you've got going on. A show where you have people come and listen and decide whether or not they agree with you. And even if people don't agree with you, you've gotten your voice out there. You've let people know what your opinion is. And that's the best thing you can do, because there's so many people that walk around believing one thing and not talking about it. When honestly, we live in an age now where it is so easy to get your opinion out there. It's so easy to get your thoughts out there. And if you've got a voice for something great that you're planning, then you need to get out and tell people about it. And we're part of Toastmasters, and I think that Toastmasters and programs like it are extremely beneficial, especially to younger generations that feel that they don't have a voice. A lot of the younger generations look at influencers on social media and think that they need to have 15 million followers on TikTok or 7 million followers on Instagram to have a voice. When followers doesn't mean anything. As long as you're getting your voice out there, if you have an opinion or an idea or a belief that people want to get behind, then you're going to be lifted up. God will take you to those places.
I totally agree. And we have a little bit of a minute. I gotta say this, guys.
Yes.
We've had 10 episodes of the series. We're already at number 6. And I just want you guys to know that this covenant contract for public affairs, once the series is over, like in mid-November, it's not totally over. Guys, we gotta keep going. And I know Carter agrees. We gotta keep going.
Absolutely.
And we have to make a stand today. We have to make a stand for correct principles. We have to take a stand in our families.
Yes.
So many people think, and I know I'm just like many people that think that if they want to be an influencer, they have to do it on the macro level. When I gotta be honest with you, and what my wife had to say to me was pretty rough today, but you know what? It was for my own good.
Yeah.
She stopped. She said, stop thinking big picture and start thinking more spiritual. Stop thinking big picture, start thinking more spiritual.
Beautiful
She said, if
said.
you'll do that, I'll love you forever.
Amen.
And with that, I hope you enjoy listening to Empower Your Pattern or watching. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, become a part of Pattern Realm. Until next time,
Yes.
listen to me. Don't you just sit there and take it. I want you to go out there and build your dreams so you can take it. Do what others don't so you can be what others won't. And do what others won't so you can have what others can't. Please share this with Mamacito, Papacito, y todo. This is Jimi Hendrix saying until next time. Choose, act, and pursue happiness. God bless you. Remember this from the bottom of my heart. Jimmy loves you. I really, 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 really love you. God bless you, and please, why don't you go out there and have a blessed day?
Amen.
There we go.
I'm going to stop the video for you.
Sure.